All right, so I guess this is a little bit of an extension or part two of my presentation, and this is really focusing more on some of the use cases and some of the views of the dashboard itself. Let me just open up the dashboard. So I guess the landing screen on the dashboard, when you go into it, there's a couple of different buttons that can navigate to some important parts. There's a player page, I guess a main summary page, a little bit of the shot chain details, some segment views and shot chain views as well. Again, some of this is probably changing at some point, but that's what it looks a little bit like. Again, it's optimized for widescreen format. At some stage, there may be a mobile version of it as well. So let's start with maybe the player page. The purpose of the player page is really to, I guess, get that sort of high-level look at the specific player. You'll get some of the I guess the biography statistics. If you want to visit their tour page, it's linked to I guess their ATP or WTA tour page. Now, noting not all players will have a profile, not all players will be playing, you know, in the ATP, WTA, or even ITF. So there's a potential extension to try and get some of the profile pages from the other tours or other competitions, but at this stage it's just picking up sort of the pages from the main tour websites. You get some general sort of information, so their bio that they provided, I guess the classified forehand and backhand grip, so that we're actually just showing the dominant hand on the backhand in this case. And you also get some details on, I guess, in this data set we've got 15 matches of Serena. You know, that's the amount of shots that are tracked. Yeah, so you get that sort of information. Importantly, you get a little bit of information on the cluster itself, so it's showing you know, which cluster she belongs to, some of the general sort of height and weight sort of characteristics and comparisons to other, because she's the WTA player, so the other WTA clusters, and just a little bit of a look at the grip makeup of the players in the cluster. So a couple of things, yeah, if you wanted to look at another player, you just select that. If a player didn't appear in the data set, there's this button here which takes you to a page that allows you to do that, and this is where, you know, you'd enter in you know, the data. So let's say it's a female player. We've got a left-handed player. They've got an Eastern forehand grip and an Eastern sort of backhand or dominant hand on the backhand, and they're two-handed. And let's just say they're 155 centimeters tall and 60 kilograms. So they fall into a cluster, and you know, the player doesn't exist in the data set, but we can infer that they're in this player cluster. This is based on the so the clustering algorithm that I used. It had sort of using a random forest initializer. We were able to get some variable importance numbers. So this is created based on rules from that. So let's say L0 WTA, and in the player page now. Sorry, not on the player page, any of the other views that you want to use, you're able to select that cluster and get some insights. I guess the second page, and I've called it the main summary page, probably title-wise it'll change at some point, but what that view gives is, well, it gives some guidance as to where the shots are being hit from the segment, where the ball gets hit to, a little bit of information around, you know, the split between whether the ball ends up on the deuce side or the ad side, short or deep. It also gives some information on, you know, the quantity of shots being hit from specific segments, you know, forehand, backhand, what are they, and a lot of these things that you click on actually filter the view. I won't click on all of them, but you sort of get the idea, hopefully. If you select on segment 5, you know, all the views, all the information down the bottom will change based on that. Equally, if you want to just look at points being won or something, and you click on this green one for the point filter, and that's giving you all the points that are won. Down the bottom here, you've got, I guess, the most used two-shot chains, the most successful two-shot chains, and the least successful two-shot chains. And in terms of how, you know, success and least success is sort of measured, I encourage you to listen to the first part of the presentation where we used a weighted outcome calculation that gave that sort of score. On the left here, there's a lot of filters. Not going to waste everyone's time by going through all of them, but basically, you can filter on player, you can filter on player cluster. You can look at filter on the hand of the players using the backhand type, single or back, the grip, the opponent's cluster, what hand the opponent is. And then also look at different just seeing things by segment. You can force the chains to look at just a specific shot first or specific shot second. Yeah, a whole lot of other filters that you can use. Again, I've filtered a lot of this to look at certain shots, but if you wanted to include serve, you can bring that in. But yeah, I won't go through all the filters, but that's basically an idea of what that is. The shot chain detail page. Now this is starting to show all the shot sort of combinations on the one page, and it's down the bottom. It's got, I guess, the top 10 and top worst 10 chains based on the selections. It's also got the individual shots that are contributing to a lot of the chains, which will be an interesting thing to look at. Again, you might want to just look at a specific player. So let's say Roger Federer. And then you've got his view, you've got his best shot chains. You might want to see how he does against, let's pick Rafa Nadal. I think there's probably only one or two matches in the data set, but yeah, you get a bit of an idea and a view based on that selection. And again, there's some filters here where you can look at, if you want to include drop shots in there. Mixed chain would, I think, include serve and return and things like that. So different filters that you can use. You can force the chain to be a certain way. So I think the previous one wouldn't have filtered because I had a selection already in there, but if you wanted to have a look at other things contributing to the chain, you'll see drop shot and a few other things now playing a part in that. And if you wanted to look at a higher level, let's say we only wanted forehand to forehand in the chain, again, it filters based on that. Now this is an interesting one which I allow the user to weight points that are won immediately versus eventually, and penalise points lost immediately. So if we were to weight, let's say we really wanted to weight the points won immediately a lot, you could do that, and then again all these selections will change based on the selection. Okay. So let's go back to, I guess, the landing page. The segment view is, I guess, the theme of this view is to look at the view from the segment's perspective. So it would be maybe to select, for instance, segment 5, and then you get a bit of an idea of, at a high level, what chains are being played, the outcomes. You can look at the detailed chains. You can look at which clusters are using that, hitting from that segment. We've got a lot of data from these two clusters, given that's where the data set, the data that we have. But hopefully, in time, you'd have a pretty good representation across multiple sort of playing clusters. Again, a lot of these things you can filter by clicking on it, and it changes the whole view, and there's a lot of different filters here that you can use. You can also have a look at the next shot sort of location, so the next shot where you hit it from. So if you want to know where the shot chains that allow you to get to segment 5 in the next shot, you can filter the view that way. Equally, you might want to look at where the opponent is in between your two chains, so in between your first and second shot in the chain, or you might want to look at where the opponent will be after both chains are hit. So you might want them sort of maneuvered completely off the court. Let's say end up in position 2. pick some, probably don't have a lot of data, so let's say in either 1, 2, or 3, and you can see that these are the combinations here, largely hit by a particular cluster, which is one of the ones that we've got a lot of data, sort of allow players to be after the chain's hit for the opponent to be in a specific location. Finally, there's a shot chain sort of view. Again, this is now looking at it from the perspective of the shot chain, so you'll select the chain that you want to look at. Let's say it's backhand cross, forehand cross, probably an interesting combination, but it's obviously happening after, in between your chain, there's some sort of direction change, so you're hitting a forehand cross maybe. Again, more observations from a specific cluster, and you're seeing Roger Federer in the data sets actually hit that combination the most. But you can then sort of interrogate your data in different ways. You might want to go, okay, I want to see who's contributing to most of that combination from segment 4. You hit that and you see the dashboard sort of filter. And the other views are hopefully intuitive, like things like who's hitting the most chains, what's the most likely next shot, or the next shot from the opponent after the chain's used. So things like that I think are sort of useful things to look at. Yeah, and finally, I mean, this last view hasn't been finalised, but you can look at the you can maybe create a really simple view to just show the strengths that your player has. So you might select a specific player, so just to see, I guess, the strengths they have, the weaknesses of the chains that don't work well, or the ones that get them into trouble. Opportunities to explore. So this will be highly depend on I guess your opponent cluster, so that's probably the difference between the strengths and the opportunities. And the threats is one where you pull the data from the opponent and have a look at I guess the threats that the opponent sort of poses, and there might be a simple one-page view to sort of view the shot chains in a way, in a scouting sort of scenario. But yeah, that's hopefully gives you a bit of an idea of the shot chain dashboards. There's probably a little bit of work still left to do to finalise it, but hopefully that's pretty close, and it's something that can provide some benefit to, irrespective of whether you're a coach, you're a player, you're a researcher, and you just want to interrogate this data in a way that makes sense to you. I think these views hopefully allow you to do that.